think we were kind of proud and excited, and it was fun to have a mascot that was goofy and silly.
They made it too close to being a Muppet.
He was fine, and I really think that's sort of how he was viewed.
It was a soft blue fuzzy thing. There's no warrior in that.
And I suspect if you asked a lot of people, unless they were in school at that time, they wouldn't even remember that it existed.
Starting in 1917, Marquette University was known as the Hilltoppers due to the location of the first academic building on campus. On May 13th of 1954, the university would move in a new direction.
The Milwaukee Braves came in '53. A hockey team was developed here called the Milwaukee Chiefs. And so the whole spirit around Native Americans became very strong, and the idea of changing during the 75th anniversary to something that was more reflective of our history with Father Marquette and discovering this part of the country and spending time with the Native American tribes, there was a rationale for doing the Warriors.
We were looking for an objective thing that with reality related to the history of Marquette, to Marquette, and to what we wanted it to represent, which is how we got to the first Warrior. What we didn't count on was it being so authentic and so sincere, I suppose, that it didn't generate enthusiasm.
It was part of the halftime, and so unfortunately, maybe he sort of got the same attention that most halftime shows get, which is people need to go and be fed and watered outside, and so it's not like everybody stopped to look.
Basketball and football are not exactly where you're going to educate people about serious issues.
Besides the student section, the fans were known for sitting on their hands, is what they called it. You could not get them excited about anything. I think that's why they made the move to get a real mascot to interact with the crowd and get the crowd going.
I remember them putting it out to the student body, and I think they put it out for how do you want to design it, what do you want the mascot to look like, and then people came and voted on a name for what they thought the mascot should be called.
In April of 1984, the finalists for the new mascot came down to the Yak, MU Cow, Sam Dunk, and Big Blue. Big Blue narrowly edged out the Yak, but the name Big Blue was short-lived. Due to a copyright that the University of Kentucky held, Marquette's mascot was left without a name.
We come to the first game against the Chinese national team, and I am informed by the administration that I'm going to come out, burst out of the box, and get a basketball. 2 cheerleaders are going to lift me up, and I'm going to dunk the basketball, and then I could go interact with the crowd.
And you can hear on the highlight tape John Owen, the public address announcer, saying in the background, "We need a name for this thing," or words to that effect, quite literally. And that was sort of the introduction to, we've got this thing here, and we don't yet have a name when they'd unveiled it.
I know, kids that are in school right now are going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But we actually thought it was kind of cool, and people are excited about it. But when I look now, it just looks like a big, gigantic Muppet.
It looked a lot like some of the characters that you'd see on Saturday morning children's shows.
Some people really liked Bleuteaux. Some people thought Bleuteaux was a little bit silly. I don't remember ever receiving any hostility over Bleuteaux. I think Bleuteaux was not offensive to the point of being a bit comical. I think people either didn't understand Bleuteaux or they were amused by Bleuteaux. I don't remember Bleuteaux ever being a particularly controversial figure.
I remember questions of what exactly is he and what does he have to do with the proud warrior tradition.
A lot of people probably felt like, as long as they're still the Warriors, who cares what the mascot is?
I know that our alumni office got a lot of letters about people and said, what is the significance of this?
It was meant to bring sort of levity and sort of crowd motivation to the games.
I felt that he was a little bit more engaging with the crowd, and to me the warrior was a much more serious role, and was definitely separate from the crowd.
When I was a junior, I read in the Marquette Tribune that they were going to have a new mascot, and I read that article and I said, I want to be that mascot.
I was on campus and there were notices, and I just remember thinking it would be really fun. There was a mystique to it. People didn't know that it was me, and that made it more fun for me when I was kind of jumping around like an idiot at the Mecca, because I didn't have to worry about anybody knowing who I was, because most people didn't.
I'm proud of it. I don't think anyone other than my closest friends realized what I went through doing that. You know, they just thought, this mascot doesn't do that much.
In 1990, discussions took place to evaluate students' attitudes towards Bleuteaux. With no overwhelming opinions to keep him, Bleuteaux was ultimately retired.
Bleuteaux looked like a Muppet, and the student body did not want to be represented by a Muppet.
You know, it didn't tie to the school, it didn't tie to the name, it didn't tie, to the team and the history. So I would imagine it might be a blip on the radar screen and probably hard for a lot of people to remember.
I just don't think it was a character that had anything that would make people remember it as, oh, wow, I remember that guy. It didn't resonate for any particular reason.
At some points, you're either bringing something to the table or you're not. So they either were finding more things to do with him and see an evolution, or you move on from it. And I don't think he ever became fully ingrained in a part of the culture.
I don't know how it got put in the first place and how they continued after about the second or third year. I think the Bleuteaux thing just kind of finally faded out of the picture.
A few years later, the administration terminated the Warrior nickname after 40 years of existence. It was a precautionary effort authorized by the university to prevent future tension with Native American groups who felt the image was in poor taste.
To look back on our 4 years there and say that what we were doing was insensitive, nobody wants to think that.
When you got enough to do on your plate at the university, you didn't want any more phone calls about something that was not exactly the major event at the institution, being education number one and things like that.
They wanted to be a little bit more proactive, and so they made that change.
I am pleased to announce the new Marquette athletic nickname, which received 54% of the total vote. Let's go into the 1994-95 sports season as the Marquette University Golden Eagles.
A lot of people to this day question why, if you're going to come up with something, do you have something that somebody already has? There was at least 3 schools that we have played that had that nickname.
I think I would have been okay or happy or fine if Marquette would have said, let's go with something historical and just call ourselves the Golden Avalanche. It's unique, it's different, it's not vanilla.
I remember thinking it was a little bit sad because it meant the Marquette Warriors that sort of I knew and was part of was just not going to be anymore.
I understand now that the tribes, at least in Wisconsin, are not happy with the various nicknames, and as a result, it's probably the best thing to do to get away from that.
Part of what people still latch onto today and hold the warrior idea so close is the fact that it was quickly and abruptly and without question was taken away.
Marquette would remain as the Golden Eagles for 11 years, but in 2005, a highly questionable change to the nickname was announced.
Today we are pleased to announce that the new athletic nickname will be the Marquette Gold.
People say that's the dumbest thing they ever heard.
That one made you sort of slam on the brakes in the car and say, "Excuse me?" I mean, even now, you try and describe it, and it doesn't work.
Your alma mater, Marquette, they've changed their nickname to the Gold. What do you think of that?
To the what?
To the Gold. The Marquette Gold. That's what they're going with now.
Oh, I got a call. I got to call in on that one.
You didn't
I don't
know this one?
I don't know how that sounds.
And the city went crazy, and the alums went crazy. They were really tough and really critical.
I was just amazed that someone would come up with that. It seemed like the worst possible choice someone could make out of any choice.
And even if Dwayne didn't go on ESPN and say you need to make a phone call, I think somebody else would have, and it would have reverted back. But I'll be honest, it was an embarrassing time.
To some of us, it's Marquette. I mean, we were Marquette before and we'll be Marquette again. Whether it's Golden Eagles, Hilltoppers, or Warriors really doesn't make a whole lot of difference to us.
It's a name. Pick a name, make it stick, make it your own. I think whatever name you pick, there's going to be people who like it, there will be people who don't like it. Own it, man. Just pick a name, go with it.
Bleuteaux is a failed attempt to be politically correct in an age where people got probably caught up and swept away in political correctness.
Bleuteaux could have been at Marquette. He could have been at 75 other schools around the country. He happened to be wearing a shirt that said MU or that said Marquette on it. There was nothing specific to Marquette. There was certainly nothing specific in terms of the nickname itself.
I think you see goofy things at games all the time now. I just don't think it would be that much of a standout to have Bleuteaux kind of appear.
It seems like the crowd is far more active than they were when I was there, and so I think Bleuteaux would be better received than I was as Bleuteaux.
When I think back about Bleuteaux, it certainly brings a smile to my face.
He was as part of Marquette and part of the athletic tradition as the Warrior was, and I felt that he was as fitting. Bleuteaux was there, and Bleuteaux was a piece of our history.